from Igniting Hope Ministries, and I am fired up to be with you today, fired up to share some great concepts with you. The title of the day is called What We Hear is the Key to Abundance. What we hear is the key to abundance. Hey, before I get going in this, we welcome you, especially welcome those of you who are our regular YouTube and Facebook live audience. We welcome just the new people as well who are joining us. And if this is your first time, we'd love for you to put in the chat, if you're watching live, to put into the chat where you're from. That'd be a blessing. Good to see Sarah here on the live broadcast. Terry, good morning. This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and I will be glad in it. I love it. It says, we'll rejoice and be glad in it. Yes, Grace, thanks for joining us from the UK. Matthew, good to see you. Nate, good morning. Good morning, good morning. And I'll tell you, something's going to happen today. Something powerful is going to happen in this broadcast. And you know, just as I was thinking about this, I just got back from a ministry trip in Virginia, and just the Lord really showed up, and I've noticed something in my travels. I've noticed something in my travels that there are young people. There are young people who are incredibly passionate about the Lord. The last two churches I've been to has been during corporate worship, has been filled with young people radically worshiping. And so it's happening. Something's happening in this next generation. And if it's not happening yet where you're at, well, I believe it's going to. Yes. Hey, good morning to Suzanne. Yes, you're expecting something powerful. And good morning to Matt. Yes. Thanks for joining us today. This is going to be a good one today. This is going to be a message that I believe is going to really speak to us. Now, what we hear is the key to abundance. Now, I've done teaching on this. It's scattered through my books. It's scattered through podcasts that I've done. One of the messages that I've done is called the Snoopy Anointing, and that's for my dog Snoopy. He, when we were pastoring in Nevada in the 90s, he was a big yellow-white lab, and some people called him fat. We called him big-boned. Some people called him fat, and we called him big-boned. And I'm exaggerating here, but Snoopy slept about 22 hours a day. But we had to be very careful about one thing. His leash was on the top shelf of the laundry room, and if we moved anything else on the top shelf and the leash moved a millimeter, that was good news for Snoopy. And he often came in with leaping in his excitement. And who said white dogs can't jump? Who said white dogs can't jump? And he often pulled future walks into his present experience. We weren't planning on taking him for a walk, but because of his enthusiasm and because his ears were attuned to that. I mean, he could hear all kinds of other noises. Front door closing, opening, refrigerator opening, things falling, people talking, but none of those moved him, but he was listening for good news. He believed in the goodness of his master. Now, so I'm going to go through a few verses here today on the power of hearing. Some of them I'll read. Some of them I will just reference. This is a key to abundance. I'm going to try to convince you today that what and how you hear is one of the most important aspects of our Christian walk. Now, in Mark 4:24, it says, take heed what you hear. Take heed what you hear. And with the same measure you use, same measure of what? It's the same measure of hearing. With the same measure you use, it will be measured to you. And to you who hear, more will be given. Just say out loud right now, more will be given. And then in verse 25, it says, for whoever has, to him more will be given. But whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. More will be given. Now, so it says, take heed what you hear. Now, you say, well, how do I know what I hear? Listen, there's a verse in 1 Timothy 5:19. It's an interesting verse because it says, receive not an accusation against an elder except in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. And the key words in that are receive not. So we can hear things and receive and not receive it. So what the context is saying there in Matthew 29, it says receive not an accusation. So you hear an accusation, but you don't hear it. Take heed what you hear. There's a lot of things floating around. That's why gossip is so damaging, because we hear things about people. I remember when I was pastoring, I would tell other pastors, hey, I won't believe everything I hear about you if you don't, and please don't believe everything you hear about me. Basically what I was saying, don't receive it. Don't receive those things. Now, as we mature and as we grow in the Lord and we become a greater leader, and by the way, I'm talking to great leaders today. I'm talking to great leaders who are watching. As we mature, we will take heed what we hear, because there's a spirit on a lot of things. Like there's a spirit that's on the media. The media is wanting to have us hear things and have us become fearful and angry and reactive. We can hear with our ears what's going on, but we have the ability to not hear. Wow. Or we have the ability to not receive it. Sarah, great to have you on here. Just love meeting with you and Nate the other day. Wow. This is, so take heed what you hear. Boy, and listen, we can control so much. Even you tuning into this broadcast live or tuning into this broadcast on the recording, you are obviously a person who wants to hear the right thing. And I commend you. And as we go on today, I'm going to convince you about the importance of this. So we have that verse in Mark 4:24. If you've just joined us, I'm talking about the importance of what we hear, take heed what we hear, and being selective in who we allow to speak into our lives, and being selective of what we receive sometimes I just say in my spirit, I don't receive that. Someone speaks negative, I may not say it directly, but I say, I don't receive that in my spirit. Now, another verse, Luke 8:18, it's almost the same as Mark 4:24. But it's got a little bit of a different twist. All right, let me find it here. My pages are turning. All right, here we go. Luke 8:18. Therefore, take heed how you hear. Take heed how you hear. Now, he said in Mark 4:24, take heed what you hear. Now, take heed how you hear. Listen, there's different ways that we can hear. And especially as we understand that the same way we get into the kingdom is the same way we advance in the kingdom is by hearing good news. So take heed how you hear. My dog Snoopy heard when the leash moved. He heard with enthusiasm. He didn't just walk into the laundry room and slowly and just kind of moping. No, he was there with leaping. One of the things I love about the Bethel church culture here in Redding, California, that I'm a part of with Bill Johnson, is that we're taught when we hear a testimony, because Bill is one of his main messages, God is good. And it's the power of the testimony that is one of the main ways that we continue to feed this truth that God is good. So we're taught to clap. We're taught, woohoo. We're taught to have the habit of enthusiastically hearing the testimony. And that's part of, because it says in Revelation 19:10, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. So there's a spirit, there's a potential that is on the testimony that if we hear it, that we can access for ourselves. Now, these are things that we receive. We say, receive not an accusation against an elder except in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. But there are things that we are to receive, not just passively, not just ho-hummingly, but to receive, wow, with enthusiasm. Now, this is fun. This is fun. Now, Hebrews, we're reading now. We're going in Hebrews, and the writer of Hebrews is going into some deep waters. And he can't go on. When we get to chapter 5, and he says these words. Verse 11, of whom, talking about Melchizedek, of whom we have much to say and hard to explain since you have become dull of hearing. Hey, there's things that are available to you. There's revelation that's available, but you become dull of hearing. Now, when we become dull of hearing, there's many reasons we can become dull of hearing. Pride, disappointment, just tiredness. There's many reasons why we can become dull of hearing. And when there's something to be said that has the potential to bring breakthrough, a prophecy, a scriptural truth, a testimony, but we become dull of hearing. And it says you've become dull of hearing. It's a process where we no longer live in wonder. We no longer are waiting. Wow. Because I remember when I first became a follower of Jesus at age 19, my first pastor, Fred, my youth pastor, Richard, they would say, always be teachable. Believe that you can learn from a 5-year-old. Keep open, keep listening to what's happening. And so he says, you become dull of hearing. He goes on in verse 12, for though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you again the first principles of the oracles of God, and you have come to need milk and not solid food. For everyone who partakes only of milk is unskilled. Now listen to this. Unskilled in the word of righteousness. Now, he links this milk as being unskilled in the word of righteousness, and links milk people aren't hearing. They're dull of hearing. Now, I could go off on a rampage on this today. I could go off, and this is a whole thing of being, because he says it didn't say you're unskilled in the word. You're unskilled in the word of righteousness. Now, the word of righteousness is that if we're skilled in the word of righteousness, then when we do an unrighteous act, we still believe we're righteous. That is the indicator of how we know we're skilled in the word of righteousness. Now, certainly, if we're doing unrighteous acts, we're not going to use this as an excuse to keep going. And if we're abusing others or we're reckless in our behavior, get help. But the point is that we, to be skilled in the word of righteousness, believes that we are still righteous when we do an unrighteous act, because that's one of the main ways we can know we're skilled in it. Well, why is this so important to the hearing, the dullness? Well, here it is. If you're not skilled in the word of righteousness, then you believe God's more interested in what you're doing than what you're believing, and about being have intimacy with him. If we are more focused on what we are doing than focused on what we're believing, we're going to have dullness of hearing, because we're not going to want to hear God. Because why do we want to hear a God that we believe that his primary concern is to correct our behaviors? Why do we? Because if I believe God's primary voice in my life, and that what he's primarily telling me is what I'm doing wrong, and that's what he's going to be talking to me about, then I'm going to be dull of hearing. I'm unskilled in the word of righteousness. This is a heavy word. This word right here, and we teach about this in our course that we're doing, Fully Convinced. We teach about this in our upcoming course that's starting September 12th, called the Transformational Mind Renewal Course, 5-month course. We go into this. And this is one of the root reasons we believe lies. This is one of the root reasons we do not have breakthrough, is because we're under an old covenant mindset. And we're positioned to hear, we believe God's primary focus in what he says to us is to correct this. But if we're skilled in the word of righteousness, then we know that God's primary concern is to tell us who we are, to tell us who we are, to tell us that he loves us, to tell us what we can do. And we're not going to be dull of hearing. Now, there's many other verses. Let me give myself some power here. If you got a Bible, you can turn to Galatians 3. And I'm going to begin to wrap this up. And these are teachings, again, that I go much deeper on, especially in our Transformational Mind Renewal course. And if you're interested in finding more information about that, you can go to ignitinghopeacademy.com and find info on our 5-month transformational mind renewal course, the 5 steps of radical mind renewal. This is encompassed in a couple steps that we have in there. Now, so Galatians 3. The book of Galatians is such a great book. I've got a pastor friend in Germany who has his students write out the book of Galatians by hand. By hand. So, because he believes it's so important. And he writes, "O foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you, that you should not obey the truth, before whose eyes Jesus Christ was clearly portrayed among you as crucified?" He says, who has bewitched you? Who's cast a spell on you? And this only I want to learn from you. This is Galatians 3:2. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith? Now, listen, we're going somewhere right now. I'm building on what I shared out of being skilled in the word of righteousness. This question, did you receive the Spirit by the works of a law or by the hearing of faith? Now, it doesn't say, did you receive it by faith? It says the hearing of faith. And by the hearing of faith. And this is, he's saying, how'd you get into the kingdom? Did you get into the kingdom by being good enough? Or did you get into the kingdom by hearing good news and believing it? And the answer is by hearing good news and believing it. By hearing it. And then he says this, are you so foolish, having begun in the Spirit, are you now being made perfect in the flesh? Are you going to be made perfect in the flesh? And he calls flesh here, it's interesting what he calls flesh. Flesh is when we believe that the way to get into the kingdom and advance in the kingdom is through what we do. He's specifically talking about advancing in the kingdom. You started by the hearing of faith. Now you're in the flesh by focusing on the works of the law. And one question to ask, people say, well, hey, what is the opposite of faith? What is the opposite of faith? Many people would say fear, but the opposite of faith is works. Because faith is the new covenant way we get into the kingdom and access the benefits of the kingdom. Works is the opposite, when we believe that we get in and access through behaviors and what we do. And so, are you so foolish, having begun in the Spirit, and in the Spirit is mean the hearing of faith, are you now being made perfect by the flesh? Verse 5, therefore he who supplies the Spirit to you and works miracles among you, does he do it by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith? Now the answer is the hearing of faith. So as we wrap this up today, and some of this is also going to be in my upcoming book, Fully Convinced, The Art of Decision Making. As we wrap this up, the same way we get into the kingdom is the same way we advance in the kingdom. It's by hearing good news. The same way we get into the kingdom is the same way we advance in the kingdom. It's by hearing good news. It's by the hearing of faith. It's evidence in Romans 10 where it talks about hearing and believing and calling on the name of the Lord. So my question for you today is, my question to you today is, what are you hearing and how are you hearing? Yeah, Allison, I love your comment and yeah, fear and doubt certainly can be the opposite of faith, but I believe in a new covenant context. And I believe this is kind of I want to say this, especially from a foundational doctrinal view, the opposite of faith is works. And because if we get that in our spirit, it's going to lead us to overcome doubts. It's going to lead us to overcome fear as well, because we're going to have the keys to do it. So here's my question for you today. It says in Mark 4:24, take heed what you hear. What are we receiving? We hear things, but we don't need to receive. We take ownership for what we are actually hearing and receiving. And so my question is, what are you hearing? And I believe even right now, there's grace being released through this broadcast to go to another level. And then Luke 8:18, take heed how you hear. I released just a childlike Snoopy anointing. I talked about my dog Snoopy at the beginning of this, about how if a leash moved in our house, he could be sleeping. He heard it, and he pulled future walks into his present experience because of his enthusiasm and because of his incredible hearing about how he heard. And so as we get into any environment, as you listen to podcasts, as you read the word, as you listen to messages, as you're in conversations, take heed how you hear, because the same way we get into the kingdom is the same way we advance, by hearing good news and believing. We hear something. Romans 10:17 says faith comes by hearing. So as I'm alert, as I'm realizing, wow, the things that are going to bring breakthrough in my life are greatly tied to my identifying what God is saying and being alert and being alive for the aha moments in our lives. And what I mean by an aha moment is our spirit leaps. Our spirit leaps. Like Snoopy's, I don't know if it's his spirit leapt, something leapt when he heard the leash move. What we hear is the key to abundance. As it says in Mark 4:24, talking about hearing, with the measure you used, it'll be measured back to you. That's why I love declarations, because I get to determine so much about what I hear. Not waiting for someone else to tell me good news. I'm not waiting for someone else to give me good news. And I love good news. So, wow, what a blessing to be with you today. Connie Jones will be with us tomorrow on this YouTube channel, Igniting Hope YouTube, and we simulcast this on Igniting Hope Facebook. If you're not signed up for our newsletter, you can go to ignitinghope.com. We'd love for you to be a part of that. And again, we're starting our transformational mind renewal course September 12th on Monday, 5 months, 3 to 4 hours a week, podcast driven for people on the go. If you're looking for something to just give God something powerful to work with in your life, or maybe a small group that you do, that might be it. If you can't afford it, let us know. Tell us what you can do. And because we want everybody to be a part of this who wants to be a part of it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And by the way, my book, Igniting Hope in 40 Days, will have some of the content you heard today in it. And then my upcoming book, Fully Convinced, will have even more. All right. Blessings. It's a great week. It's going to be the best week yet. I'm excited. Just say I'm excited about this week. And then think about some things that you're going to be doing. Say, I'm excited. And even if you're not excited, say, I am excited. And as you say that, you're going to stir up. You're going to stir up and attach faith to what you're doing. Yes. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for those who are on live. That's just we love it when people are on the live and on the chat. Thanks so much for everybody just sharing as well. Just what firing each other up. It's incredible. I'm excited for this week. I'm excited for my meetings. I'm excited when I'm home with my family. I'm excited. Yep, we attach faith. Yep, thanks, Nate and Sarah. Thanks for being on here. Looking forward to working with you this year. Rob Weir, oh my. It's going to be on my team. He releases double fire. He is on my team. Allie, such a big part of our Igniting Hope family, an Igniting Hope certified belief trainer. Allie, love you and Stefan so much. Yes. Just kind of, Jen, thanks for saying you love me. We love you guys out there as well. Whew. It's going to be a great week. Don't just, oh man, David, thanks, David, for showing up and just releasing encouragement. It's a great day, not just a good day. Rob, you'll never be the same again. Oh man, you know that's my love language. Yeah, just kind of a fun little, I'm lingering here. Fun little thing we're going to be doing. Wendy and I are going to be going to Bethel Church and filming video announcements. We're doing video announcements this week. That's going to be fun. Thanks, Rachel and Ian. Love you. Thank you for what you guys are doing and raising up leaders. It is good. All right, everybody.